What is the secret to looking 10 years younger than your actual age? The real secret is to become 10 years younger. Epigenetic science now tells us that we can actually influence the rate at which we age by as much as 70%. This means our chronological age and our biological age can be two very different things. Our chronological age is simply the number of years we have been alive, or simply put, it's the number of candles you've had to blow out on your last birthday cake. Our biological age, however, is the amount of function that we still have remaining in our bodies. In other words, it is the age which our body still acts like. How do you compute what your biological age is? And how do you slow it down? Keep watching this video to find out. If all of a sudden you were to develop amnesia and you forgot when your birthday was, and somebody were to ask you how old you are, what would you say to them based on what you see in front of a mirror? Scientists estimate that we can actually make our bodies younger or older by as much as 15 years based on lifestyle factors. This means that if an average human lifespan is 80 years, then the difference between living until 65 and reaching 95 is largely up to us. Most people assume that aging is something that they have very little to no say in, and that genetics will determine largely when and how we die. We now know that this is not true. You can not only live longer, but you can live healthier lives while doing so. In order to fully understand this, I want you to first remove the idea from your head that chronological age is the largest determinant of your lifespan and health span. Yes, it's true that chronological age plays a major factor. After all, very few people die at a young age. But ultimately, it is your biological age that will determine how well you age. Because all aging really boils down to is how well you can still maintain your physical functions. If you are 40 years old but your physiologic functions are still the same as they were when they were 25, then technically you are still biologically 25 years old. I would in fact go as far as to say that if you were overweight and unhealthy in your 20s, and you were to somehow reverse that and become metabolically healthy in your 40s, you have in fact successfully aged backwards. We can define aging as a gradual loss of physical function over time. It is inevitable that as we get older, we lose some of our physiologic functions. Cardiac output decreases, muscle and bone begins to deteriorate, our ability to reproduce goes away, and the skin begins to sag and wrinkle. And it is the rate at which we lose this function which will determine our biological age. And our biological age is ultimately what will determine how long our bodies will remain young. Now, I want you to listen very, very carefully to what I'm about to say next, because it can dramatically alter the way you perceive aging and dying. There is no difference between dying young and dying of old age. Why? Because there is no such thing as somebody dying of old age. If somebody were to die under 65, we would assume that that person died of an accident or a disease like cancer, stroke, or heart disease. And if somebody dies at the age of 90, we say that that person died of natural causes. Well, there is no such thing as a death from a natural cause. The person who died at 90 most probably died of the same things that the person who died at 65 died of: stroke, cancer, heart disease, accidents. The only real difference between these two people is that the person who lived to 90 enjoyed 25 years more of life. You see, we only really succumb to these diseases once the body loses its physiologic functions, one of which is to repair the body and fight off these diseases. The person who died young simply lost these functions at a much younger age. So you see, disease does not automatically accompany old age. Just as youth does not guarantee good health, old age does not guarantee poor health. It is still largely up to us. So how do you measure your biological age? There are several ways to do this. There are labs in the world that offer to measure your methylation clock, or what is also known as your Horvath clock. Still others can measure the length of the telomeres at the end of your chromosomes. Both of these methods claim to be able to accurately predict your biological age. But to be perfectly honest, they're not widely accessible, and their merit hasn't yet been proven 100%. There are simpler tests that you can do that can predict with a fair degree of accuracy what your biological age is. And one of these tests is to test for insulin resistance. Insulin is a key hormone that your body produces, and one of its functions is to regulate your metabolism in response to the foods that you eat. Insulin can tell your body to store food and grow, or it can tell your body to break down fat and produce its own energy. We now know that insulin is a key player in the aging process because overstimulation of growth pathways can lead to accelerated aging. And if you are overproducing this hormone, you are said to be insulin resistant because your body is no longer responding to the signaling of insulin in a normal fashion, so you tend to produce more and more to overcompensate. And as you produce more and more insulin, you begin to accelerate the aging process. And this is why I mentioned in my previous videos that obesity and aging follow the same trajectory. This is because you need insulin in order to put on body fat. And the fatter you become, the more insulin your pancreas is forced to produce. And this mimics the aging physiology. If you haven't already, I'm going to attach a link to that video in the comment section below so you can check it out right after you watch this video. Here are 5 ways to tell if you are insulin resistant. Number 1. Are your body fat levels under 15% if you are male or under 25% if you are female? I discussed body fat percentages in my last video, so if you haven't already, again, I'm going to post links on the comment section below so you can check that one out after this video. Number 2. Check for fasted glucose and keep fasted glucose under 82 milligrams per deciliter. The normal ranges for a healthy male or female are between 75 to 95 milligrams per deciliter. But I always tell my clients when I work with them that I want to keep it on the low side of normal, preferably under 82. The lower these values are, the more likely it is you are insulin sensitive. Number 3. Check for fasted insulin and make sure that you are on the lower range of normal. There is no one universal way to measure fasted insulin, but they will always give you a reference range to see if you fall within normal. Now, even if you fall within normal of this reference range, make sure you are at the lower end of normal. The lower you can keep these values, the slower you will age. Number 4. Next, you take your fasted insulin and your fasted blood glucose and make sure that your HOMA IR falls under 1.0. Your HOMA IR, or your homeostatic model assessment for insulin resistance, is your fasted insulin multiplied by your fasted glucose over 22.5. Now, depending on the metrics you were given, there are different ways to compute for HOMA IR. Probably the simplest way would just be for you to download a HOMA IR calculator on your phone and input the correct values. You want your HOMA IR to be between 0.5 to 1. Number 5. Test for triglycerides and HDL and make sure that your triglyceride to HDL ratio is under 1. Your triglycerides are the fats that are circulating in your bloodstream, and your HDL, or high-density lipoprotein, are your good cholesterols. You want to make sure that the ratio of your triglycerides divided by your HDL is under 1. The lower you can keep that value, the slower the aging process. If you say yes to at least 3 of these criteria, then congratulations. Chances are you're still insulin sensitive and you're slowing down the aging process. If you want to optimize aging, try and make sure you take all 5 of these criteria and make sure that your values fall within the low side of the reference ranges. There is a final way to assess if you are indeed aging optimally, and that is simply by staring in the mirror. If the reflection staring back at you resembles that of a fit and healthy young adult, then congratulations, you are in fact aging very well. If you are over 40, the less wrinkling, discoloration, or sagging that you see, the better. Why? Because wrinkling, sagging, and discolorations are all signs of organ damage. A lot of people forget that the skin is an organ, one of the largest organs in your body. And what you see on the outside is often a reflection of what is going on inside. So now that you know if your biological age is younger or older than your chronological age, what can you do if you in fact find that you are aging prematurely? There are 3 things. Tip number 1, move. Physical activity has been shown to dramatically improve insulin sensitivity. Resistance training in particular has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity by as much as 7% after only 2 weeks. This is because muscle can take up glucose independent of insulin. so insulin levels can be kept constantly low. Tip number 2, practice calorie restrictions. Multiple studies show that reducing calorie intake activates the body's autophagic response. Autophagy is essentially targeted cell destruction, where the body destroys old and damaged cells in order to form new and healthy ones. Studies show that high levels of insulin inhibit autophagy, so keeping your insulin levels low will slow down the aging process by increasing autophagy. Tip number 3, eat healthy fats. Prioritizing healthy fats over carbohydrates has been shown to mimic the effects of fasting, and fasting is a proven way to trigger autophagy in the body. At Lumiere's 360 Anti-Aging Program, we deliver whole foods in the correct ratios to help you trigger autophagy and slow down intrinsic aging, or the rate at which you internally age. Combine this with cutting-edge lasers and energy devices. Not only are you going to look years younger, but you're also going to feel years younger as well. If you have any questions, feel free to message us on our website, www.lumiereskinandspa.com, or you can reach us on our social media pages, Facebook and Instagram, Lumiere Skin and Spa. You can also leave your questions on the comment sections below. If you have any topics that you want me to talk about, I'll be more than happy to review them. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell so that you're going to be notified every time a new video comes out. As I always say, if you're not aging deliberately, chances are you're not aging well. Until next time, this has been Mike Chan, to your looks and good health. Branch anti-aging and laser clinic called Lumiere Skin and Spa. I'm also a certified medical and laser esthetician, and I've trained with some of the best practitioners both here and abroad. So I'm very familiar with what lasers can and cannot do.